So good morning everyone. We are the group 4 and we will be discussing the topic about making social moves. So before anything else, I am Maria Mibelbi Cabasen and I will be reporting the subtopic about speech act and speech act theory. So, when people converse with one another, they are making various kinds of social move. When we talk about social move, we associate it with the way we perceive and behave when delivering conversation or when giving information to others.
In this chapter, we will look in more detail at different kinds of linguistically mediated social moves, what analysts called speech acts. So, speech act means a move in a continuing discourse among interactants. It is firmly embedded in social practice. So, speech from the speech act, from the word speech means to talk or give conversation. So when we talk, we utter words and develops interaction within the social that we are into. The relationship that was built among interactants will be moved along one more step from ideas to ideologies, and it brought accomplishment between them. As we speak, we perceive ideas which would turn to be knowledge as there is an exchange of ideas between the speakers. Say, for example, in a classroom setting, the teacher discusses the lesson and the student listen to what the teacher has been discussing in front. They are both interactants and they share ideas which eventually would fall as knowledge, and it helps the student and the teacher to understand the different views that each of them has. A move or the way words are uttered depends on the way that interactants perceive the information that they want to convey to the opposite. It can be a compliment, a complaint, an insult, a request, a command, a criticism, a question, a one-up, an exclamation, and even a promise. And these words are what we often refer to as speech acts. Example: when we are making a promise to someone, we often tend to cross our hearts, show our palm in front of the person we are promising to, and sometimes we make pinky promise, a sign that you mean what you are saying. This is an example of a social move because there are meaningful interactive moves that are ordinarily understood instead of using language to relay what you are saying. Repeated moves of a particular type can grow an activity. A series of one-ups can become a competitive conversation. A series of complaints can become a gripe session. A series of criticism from one person to another can become a dressing down. A series of statements on one topic can become a lecture. The more interesting the topic will be, the deeper the meaning it suggests. Philosopher J.L. Austin, 1962, initiated the systematic study of speech acts in his well-known exploration of how to do things with words. He spoke of individual speakers as if their social identities and relations to one another were irrelevant to their status as speakers. To undermine the view that speech and actions are opposed to one another, Austin drew attention to what he called performative utterances. So, when we talk about performative utterances, it means giving authority to someone to do something. Say, for example, a person with a proper institutional authority, he pointed out, can say, "You're hired," and thereby gave a job to the addressee. The utterance itself, given the proper institutional setting and a speaker authorized to produce it, brings it about the addressee has indeed been hired. Those words starts a chain of events that will, if the addressees accept the offer, lead to the addresses showing up for work and getting a paycheck sometime thereafter. Another linguist, Judith Butler, draws inspiration from Austen's theory of performative utterances. She develops Austen's important insight that performativity is not just a matter of an individual's wanting to do something by saying something. Verbal as well as other performances come off, acquire their meaning and do their work because they draw on discourse histories of similar performances, reiterating elements that have worked similarly in the past. In that reiteration, however, there is the possibility of individuals going beyond the constraints of the social or linguistic system they have inherited, perhaps ultimately thereby contributing to changing it. Not all utterances affect the world as dramatically as overt performatives like, I hereby pronounce you husband and wife, when uttered by a person licensed by the state to perform marriages. Nonetheless, Austen observed all utterances are indeed actions. He distinguished three different kinds of acts involved whenever someone says something, and those three kinds of acts are locutionary act, illocutionary act, and perlocutionary acts. When we say locutionary act, the speaker produces an utterance, a stream of sound or hand gestures or marks on a page or computer screen as a particular linguistic expression with a particular structure and literal meaning. The locutionary act sets the stage for the illocutionary act, which means what is done in saying whatever has been said. Example: have you claimed something or inquired? Have you promised or threatened or warned? Apologized or empathized, or complained or teased? In saying something and meaning something by it, a speaker always performs one or more such illocutionary act. Perlocutionary act, on the other hand, means an act accomplished by saying something.
So good afternoon. My name is Rika Cabasan. I'm going to report about the speech acts embedded in social actions. So speech act theorists have talked about speech acts as parts of larger plans for collaborative social action. Our everyday taxonomies of speech acts takes account of both content and form condition. A promise convey something about future action of the speaker or someone over whom the speaker can assume control. So speech act it's talking about the part of the larger plans on form of condition. So there is a large literature on speech acts as components of plans, much of it developed in conjunction with work related to artificial intelligence. The parent's promise, for example, the parent's promise becomes one of the child's interaction assets. There has been little contact in either direction, has been this quite abstract and theoretical work of speech acts. So, for example, is the mother or parents' prize when their children got the high grades or kanang accomplish something. The parents should give their children to so that they will bear their mind that they do good job in what they have done from the things they do. So next is the complements are one kind of named speech act type in English that is widely seen as gendered. So these functions and motivations may not always coincide and can often be interpreted quite differently by interaction participants. Complements are also loaded with cultural values and associated with cultural norms. So next is complement. So what is complement? A complement are social moves that live in a landscape of evaluation. They convey explicitly or implicitly positive appreciation of something or action for which the addressee may apparently be created. appearance, achievements, positions. In the positive neighborhood, we find not only compliments but also such moves as praise and approval. Appreciating others' success and achievements they have can boast more confidence to the person being appreciated. Unlike praise or approval, compliments are not offered solely as evaluation moves. Compliments do not only evaluate or appraise. Their positive appraisals are presented to please others, to enhance their sense of themselves as admirable or likable or successful people. A compliment is inappropriate if it is conveys a positive evaluation in some domain. Compliments are to be understood as doing face work on behalf of the addressee. Inappropriate compliments are moves that might do wanted face work for the addressee in some situation, but do not do face work called in the utterance context. So parents often embarrass their children by offering compliments that significantly damage the face work the children are attempting to do with their peers.
Good day, everyone. I am Myla Alcabanday, and in continuation with Rika's report, I will be reporting the evaluation as face work. People's evaluation of one another is central to social interaction and to the construction and enforcement of social norms. People are always expected to have comments or to say something on particular thing or person. It could be positive or negative, explicit or implicit. It is said that people's evaluation is central to social interaction and to construct and enforce social norms. It could be the main topic why people socialize or there is an social interaction. It also construct or enforce social norms. Because of it, there are standards of proper behavior being set. Eleanor Ox and Carlin Taylor, 1995, argued that the fathers in these families were the primary evaluators of the other family members, but that fathers were themselves only rarely the targets of others' evaluative comments. As what we have observed, it is usually the father who usually evaluates the other members of the family. Them being the head of the family could be the reason. They would be positioned as family judges. For example, tell daddy what you did this morning, Jennifer. This statement shows that fathers should be informed whatever is happening and their judgment should be heard. Other people say about us or our things or our activities can be seen as potentially evaluative. Anything that other people says as positive or negative, compliments or insults, are a form of evaluation. It will depend on us on how we will react on it. As we can see, evaluation could be reasons of someone's growth and improvement. See for this example. I see you stirring the sauce in a clockwise direction. You might wonder, why does she ask for it? Is it necessary? Does it matter? Is there really a need for her to point it out? Of course, if the observer is trying to learn to cook from you, then you are probably being constructed as the authority in steering direction, and you will be unlikely to take the observer's comment as evaluative. In making a complimenting move, the agent assumes the authority to appraise whatever is being complimented. In the English compliment corpora that have been collected, both women and men compliment women most often, and appearance is the dominant topic of the collected compliments, especially when women are the addresses. We can say that is true to life since we have personally observed and experienced it. These corpora have fewer men giving compliments overall. Those they give are more often than women's focused on abilities or achievements of the complimentee. It is tempting to see in these patterns another confirmation of men as active subjects, women as passive objects to be looked at. It is perhaps more illuminating, however, to explore how complements and other evaluations construct normative expectations that looks and likability will matter a lot to women and that talents and active projects will matter more to men. Both Tannen and Holmes have proposed that women complement are complemented more than men because for women complementing is primarily about positive effect, about strengthening solidarity with others in one's communities of practice. For men, in contrast, complementing is supposed to be primarily about asserting one's authority to evaluate the other and therefore carries potentially greater face threat. Responses to compliments often indicate ambivalence. In many English speaking communities of practice, simple things is a common response or some other token of agreement. Basically, half the responses from both sexes fell into one of these categories in the New Zealand corpus. Outright rejection or disagreement was relatively Outright rejection or a disagreement was relatively infrequent from both women and men, whereas some kind of deflection or evasion was fairly common from both sexes. Complimenting is often routine and formulaic. In some situations, routine compliments just show good manners. Good manners are, of course, associated with maintaining class hierarchies. These conventions of behavior are also frequently gendered feminine in several senses. They are to be especially adhered to by women and they should be specially followed by men in the presence of women. It is important to realize that just because a compliment is routine and in that sense not fully meant does not mean that it cannot make the recipient who recognizes its routine status feel good. A routine compliment is very different from a sarcastic compliment. Sarcasm and irony are possible with any kind of speech act or social move, though they are much common in some communities of practice than in others. Finally, there is the deceptive compliment. In this case, it is not only that the complimenter does not believe the literally expressed positive evaluation. Deceptive complimenters are usually primarily self-interested. They want to enhance complimentees' good opinions of them. Enhancing complimentees' good feelings about themselves is not an end but simply a means. The line between sincere routine compliments and deceptive compliments is not always clear, especially since people often have rather mixed motives. You may genuinely want to make someone else feel good, but of course, you may also want to make them feel good about you. And the next topic will be about beyond conversation. Social moves are not made only in face to face conversational interactions. Mass media are important, and there is an increasing literature on gender issues raised in magazines, TV, and films. Information technology and the increased commercialization of communication skills also connect to gender in important ways. Although we do sometimes mention other uses of language, it is in such interactions that children enter communities of practices and that adults lead much of their lives. Keep in mind that there are different feminities and masculinities, and these normative expectations do not function in the same way or with the same intensity for everyone or in every English speaking community of practice. Some women stay away from such routinized compliments, some men employ them frequently. Mary Talbot, 1998, offers some discussion of print media. Maritha Storken and Lisa Cartwright, 2001, offer a feminist-informed introduction of the visual culture. Susan Heering, 1994, focuses on computer-mediated communication, whereas Deborah Cameron, 2000, emphasizes such arenas and telemarketing. Functions of thoughts and motives of
talkers in gender opposition. Inequality of various kinds among speakers can affect interpretation, so that even if comprehension is all that is needed, it might not be forthcoming in some situations. Example of this inequality is if someone thinks that the speaker is not linguistically or is ignorant of sound fact relevant to the interpretations. Next is two types of conversational style, which is the cooperative or other-oriented versus competitive or individualistic. When we say cooperative or other-oriented, is that example of this one is we consider as women as the more polite than a man. It is considered as more polite because they use polite language, and this is said to be because there are more other-oriented, more collaborative, and more effective. Levenson's label positive phase and negative phase are inspired in part by Durkheim's in 1915 in Positive and Negative Rights, along with the insights derived from Goffman. So, what is positive phase? So positive phase needs have to do with the need for the approval from others for a sense of being liked by others or being connected to them. And when we say negative phase is the need to do with in making a place for oneself, a need to pursue one's own projects without the interference from the others. And positive politeness, it involves addressing positive phase needs, showing that you like or empathize with someone, that you include them in your be or in group. Example of positive politeness is commiserating with one another about common problems. Example in this commiserating with one another is when you have a problem then and your parents want you to talk to them, it is one way of expressing sorrow or compassion. And also admiring others' taste in clothing and friendly joking. Next is negative politeness is showing respect or deference, avoiding imposing or defending acknowledging rights. So, example of negative politeness is often try to correct a social wrong done by one another. Things typically acknowledge that another has been willing to extend themselves for one's own good. So for example of this one is you correct the wrongdoing of another, like your boss, your parents, your teacher. That is one way of negative politeness. That politeness does not lie simply in forms as such, but in what speakers use those forms to do. And also with Janet Holmes, 1985, she argues that women tend to be more linguistically polite than men. Holmes also resulted task of a number of other investigators whose work she discusses strongly suggests that women predominate as both initiators and recipients of certain kinds of polite speech acts. Affective and instrumental talk. The affective function of talk covers both the overt expression of emotion and everything that has to do with the maintenance of social relations. Examples of overt expression of emotions are saying how sad, damn it, what a sweetie, or how bastard he is. And it is generally contrasted with the referential or instrumental function conveying information or trying to establish facts and get things accomplished.
Intimacy and autonomy, cooperativeness and competitiveness. Devorah Tannen, 1990, is one of the most widely read accounts of the gender division of the work done by Talk. Tannen characterizes women as most interested in promoting intimacy with others, in strengthening affiliative bonds among people in promoting solidarity. Tannen and a number of other analysts have also suggested that women work to constitute an egalitarian social world where horizontal ties predominate. In discussing this claim critically, we cited work of Marjorie Harness Godwin that makes it clear that girls do indeed engage in many verbal activities that function to make and enforce social divisions. There are cultural contexts where neither the affective or instrumental division of linguistic labor nor the related gender polarities, like cooperative or competitive, would ever have seemed gendered in ways so many investigators of English speakers have found appealing.